We're going to record this session because there are people who can't attend who would like to hear the talk. So this is Edward Levinson from Chiba Prefecture on the Boso Peninsula talking. And we're now going to start with a very quick screen share as a little opening practice to get us warmed up. The first, this is toward the one, united with all. This is the simplest attunement practice that I know. Toward the one, united. So what you do is you breathe in, and while you're breathing in, you are thinking or meditating on the thought toward the one. And as you breathe out, you meditate on the phrase united with all. So it's breathe in toward the one, breathe out, united with all. So it's breathe in toward the one, breathe out, united with all. So I'd like to begin with a short piece that's a sort of a self-introduction to my inner life. This was the introduction that's used for my haiku book called Balloon on Fire. It's called Touch of Light. And this is the book. So you'll see the photo later. Singing a touch of light. Singing a silent song in a pantomime-like dance. Light moves freely, touching me all over. Tickling the surface of the leaves, penetrating, warming the depths of the earth and my being. Light paints its way through nature. Sitting in the light, its quiet power excites me. It offers me an intoxicating drink, but no glass. I drink with my eyes and fill my inner cup. I look at my life and problems and try to see more clearly the path to take. Dressing up in the robes of nature, light flirts with me. Why not drink another cup, it asks. My eyes smile, the heart laughs, amazed by light's subtle way of courtship. Ideally, we should be doing this session in a room where we can feel and see each other's energy, look each other in the face, and or ideally we should be doing sitting outside in nature would be the best place, but this is the times that we live in. So today's practices and ideas are to help you stay focused and balanced and to create space for ideas and inspiration to come in. Some few questions to get us started. How many of you, maybe you can just nod your head or just wave, or you don't have to answer, but how many of you do some kind of so-called mindfulness meditation or mindfulness practice? I'm sure many of you do. Okay, good. How many of you have ever written a poem or an essay inspired by a moment or a thought that occurred when you were meditatively sitting or walking in nature? You just signal whatever. I'm sure that just about everybody here has done that. How many of you have created a meditative character for a short story or a novel that you've written or are writing? So you're writing about a meditative character. Well, hopefully I know some of you here are fiction writers, short story writers. Hopefully you'll get some ideas to build on or make a meditative character for your next book. How many of you have been bitten by a mosquito while trying to meditate? Or had a mosquito inspire you to write something? Yeah, so here's a short haiku inspired by the mosquitoes, not meditating, but while working in the garden. Pulling weeds, mosquitoes on my back, have a picnic. Pulling weeds, mosquitoes on my back, have a picnic. How many have been bothered by everyday thoughts while trying to concentrate on mindfulness, while trying to tune into the higher power of nature? Nobody ever has any problem with their mind wandering, I'm sure. No, none of us do. Not me either. So here's a little haiku for that. Cicadas crying, heart worrying, can I succeed? I see someone has their hand up. I'm not sure if they're just saying, okay, yes. So we'll come back to that later. Does your meditation just relax you? Does it center you? Does it give you energy? Or does it take you to a deeper place? Introduction page number 4. I just say that these are all nicely typed out notes that all the inspirations, almost everything I'm going to prepare in this lecture, the written words, came to me during my meditation time. I had to stop meditating or just in the middle and pull out my little notebook. And, oh, that's a good idea for the JWC conference. So I would say that the majority of this lecture presentation was written during my meditation time. So yes, the mind does wander, but it's definitely a good space for inspiration. Attunement. The word attunement is often, in my case, almost never recognized by software spell checkers. Attunement. Maybe I'm not spelling it right, but I've sent it to magazines and articles and books, and it's always been published the way I typed it. So I just find that's a little strange that maybe my software is just old. Nature attunement is more than just mindfulness, in my opinion. It uses all the senses. Ideally, this should be done outside, but more on that later. I dare say I was a meditator before I was a creative person, or perhaps they began hand in hand. About the slides and the meditation that we'll get into shortly. So, what do I mean by nature attunement? Or as I most often and more simply call it, nature meditations. In its basic form, it's simply breathing practices, concentrating on the 4, and some people call it 5 elements. It is really 5 elements. So breathing practices, concentrating on the 5 elements. That's the big part of the nature meditations. For me, doing it as much as possible on a daily practice creates space for my writing and, of course, my photography as well to come through. I did not invent this practice that I will share with you in a moment. I learned several versions of it from various teachers during the late 70s, and I've been practicing it daily and adapting it to my own needs and sharing it with people for more than 40 years. So you think I know how to do it by now, but like every other person who tries to do some sort of meditation or concentration or mindfulness, it's never perfect. So that's fine. So now we're going to go back to the screen share, but just for 1 second, let me see if I can get that up to be a little bit.
It was working before, right?
Okay, there you go.
It's working.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very sorry for the delay. Whisper of the Land, which happens to be the name of my book. I'll show you later. Whisper, equaling quiet voice, something special, private, but universal. Land equals earth, country, planet, unity. Feet on the ground, head in the sky. This is something that's very precious to me. This is another one that you could do on the breath. You could breathe in, feet on the ground, head in the sky. feet on the ground, head in the sky. Okay, earth, water, fire equals sun equals light, air equals wind, 4 elements and 4 simple breaths. So now we get to the real workshop part of this presentation. So just very quickly, we're going to show you some pictures of earth, water, fire, and air. And each breath, each element has its own breath, a different direction for the breath. So, in traditional haiku, there are big emphasis on nature, on the seasons, other kinds of writing about Japan. Both Japanese and non-Japanese writers often include the same nature images. Any Japanese person would look at these 4 slides and know exactly what season it is. Obviously, winter, spring, summer, and fall. So here we are on Earth. The breathing for Earth is you breathe in through your mouth, in through your nose, and out through your nose. So as you look at the photo, I just want you to breathe very naturally. Breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. You concentrate on a tree, you concentrate on a growing plant, concentrate on growing energy up and into yourself, becoming rooted. So the element earth. In through the mouth and out through the mouth. Now, ordinarily, you would do each one of these practices 4 or 5 breaths, but we're just going to move a little bit quickly. So, water. Can you imagine what the water breath is? The water breath is you breathe in through the nose, and you breathe out through your mouth. But the secret is that when you're breathing out through the mouth, the lips are just barely open so that you feel the flow going over the lips. So the water breath, breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. And the direction is more from above, coming down. Purification with water. You can use any images that you like, but these are just suggestions. Breathing in through the nose and breathing gently out the mouth. Once more. It's very easy to get lost in some of these sometimes and forget to move on to the next one. I'll have a PDF I can pass out later, so you don't have to make notes. Sun, fire, light. The breathing is you breathe in through the mouth. Again, the lips are just pursed, feeling the breath coming in and breathing out through your nose. So the theme is breathe in fire, breathe out light. Breathe in fire, breathe out light. And we don't want to go too deep, too heavy, but it's also the breathing in the fire is also sometimes the image used to sort of burn the ego or purify the ego, and then on the exhalation, converting fire into light. And we'll progress to air. or if you want to call it wind, that's fine. And you notice that I will not have any photos for ether, so that the wind sort of carries you into the ether breath. So you can if you've been following along, you may be able to guess which direction the wind breath is. You're breathing very gently in and out through the mouth. And it's a feeling of expansion inward, breathing in through the mouth. And a feeling of expansion, breathing outward through the mouth. Very gently. And then as your breath gets very gentle, you just sort of forget if you're breathing through the nose or the mouth, or you just go back to breathing very gently through your nose. You just find a rather peaceful point where you can maybe touch some spirit, feel the ether. For me, I have a next part of my practice, which comes after the 4 elements. People who are curious about that, we can do during the question and answer session. So you're probably wondering, you can relax now you're breathing, or you can just keep breathing anywhere you like. But you're probably wondering, what do I do if I'm stuck in the city? I don't live out in nature like you do. I don't have I'm not surrounded by nature. Well, I spend time in the city, obviously. These pictures are all my pictures taken in Tokyo. Mori's 53rd floor of the Mori building, Ginza Skiabashi crossing at the sun solstice. The top one is Roppongi Hills. It's called Lost in the Hills. Summer solstice, and I forget what the bottom right photo is called. I can't remember the title, but the point is that I used to live in Tokyo, and I used to teach these practice to my meditation students in Tokyo. I said, well, you can feel water. You can feel the elements anywhere, even in concrete. Concrete is made of earth and water and some air and some blood and some sweat. So, and you can always find a little place. I mean, I stay in business hotels in Tokyo, and if I have to look out the window from my daily dose of meditation, morning meditation, that so be it. If I happen to be staying at a friend's house who has a little garden or a terrace, then I jump on the terrace. And if you read my book later someday, you'll see that I've also been known to do my practices just walking from my house to the train station during my commute. So, unthinking mind. I just threw this slide in there, and I left the Japanese caption on there as well. Innocence, keeping a state of innocence, keeping an empty mind. Your mind might be empty, but doing these breathing practices or these nature attunements will help you create an empty space for something to come in. I don't believe in becoming just completely empty and that's the end of it. I believe in being empty or being receptive, and in order to make a space for new things, old things, inspirational things to come in. So, haiku and other phrases as mantras, prayers, or affirmations. Well, what does that mean? Does anybody have a guess? In what we've been doing so far is stuff on the breath. And there's the idea that if you put a phrase So we're all writers. Everybody can come up with a phrase of your own. You don't have to have a phrase from a book necessarily, but you come up with your own phrase, and you put the phrase on the breath is the expression that you use. So part of the phrase is on the inhalation, part of the phrase is on the exhalation, and part of the phrase can be you can be holding your breath as well. So, example, this is a haiku. It's one of my haiku. It's a little difficult to use 3 lines, I must admit. I tried this actually in a haiku workshop where everybody was presenting these really academic papers, and so they asked me to do a presentation sort of similar to this, to like a little meditation for people to relax. So this is one of my haiku. I'll just read the English. Bird's song, worries gone, fly away. And so if I did this one on the breath, I would breathe in bird's song. And you just breathe in the bird song that you're listening to. And then as you breathe out, worries gone, fly away. Bird's song, worries gone, fly away. So, like I say, it's a little difficult to do it with 3 lines. The breaks would be wherever you could add it. This would be called one of my original nature meditations. There's one more. North wind touches my shoulders, awakening dreams. North wind touches my shoulders, awakening dreams. This is a haiku that was actually inspired doing my meditation outside in the back meadow in the winter, and it was really cold and the wind was blowing and it was freezing, but I was determined to stand there and do my breathing. So in this case, breathe in the first 2 lines. North wind touches my shoulders, becoming one with the wind and the cold. And breathing out, awakening dreams. North wind touches my shoulder, awakening dreams. So just 2 examples of a couple that I've used, tried. If you want to use your own haiku or find a haiku, or it doesn't have to be a haiku, it can be 1 line, it can be 2 lines, it can be a prayer. Here's a couple of quick, so here's a few more of my haiku that also in my book, Balloon on Fire. And also most of 3 of these are in my book, Whisper of the Land, as well. Earth, for the earth theme, ginkgo leaf floats to the ground, homecoming. Ginkgo leaf floats to the ground, homecoming. And the water, this water one was actually written as I was driving a car. So it was not as I was meditating. I was driving a car on when I was in a van, moving all my belongings out to where I live right now. Spring rain, washing heart, spirits kiss. Spring rain, washing heart, spirits kiss. And fire, spring sunset floats freely, balloon on fire. Spring sunset floats freely, balloon on fire. And lastly, air and wind. Fall wind takes the unknown road, spreading wings. Fall wind takes the unknown road, spreading wings. So I have a whole lot more, but this was just a sample. So the key, ether, having all the elements to come together as one: earth, water, fire, air, spirit, ocean, mountain, sun, clouds, blue. This is actually taken just a couple of kilometers from my house. I'm actually in the ocean. So just kind of just wanted to share that one. And as I already mentioned, for unthinking mind, be receptive. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of resting. You may be the sun, you may be the moon. The key is to be as tuned to as many as you can. I'm not the best at that. I have my strong points, which I will get into maybe later in the Q&A if you haven't already guessed them. What's next? Fire. Balloon on fire, yes. There's something to read for this one. So the question is, how do you make the connection to nature your own? This is my connection to nature. You're going to find your own way, I hope. In modern day language or modern slang, how do you make it that you own it? Not that you actually own nature, but that nature is naturally a part of you. It is part of your being and sprouts naturally, flowers naturally, becomes a part of your writing and your creative endeavors, and radiates in your daily activities, daily life activities. So, it's my sincere wish that you we all be balloons on fire and heat up each other. Give us one more slide, the creative juices. Just a little fun one. The bee and the butterflies. Just bring any memories to people. I'm sorry I have everybody muted, but if you don't mind, a few more minutes. My wife drew my attention to a Japanese book recently. She saw an advertisement in the Japanese newspaper, a Japanese popular, recently published book in Japanese called Chō no you ni yomi, Hachi no you ni kaku by Kitamura Sai. Translated as, read like a butterfly, write like a bee. Of course, it's based on Muhammad Ali's dance like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So shall we try? Breathe like a butterfly, sting like a mystic. Breathe like a butterfly, sting like a mystic. Okay, that ends the slideshow. So, everybody still with me here? Time. Yeah, we have a little bit. I'm have like two short conclusion statements to sort of tie all this into writing a little bit, and then I'd like to open up for questions or share a little more, etc. So practical use for writers. Conclusion number 3. Conclusion number 1 was the bee and the butterfly. So one of my previous editors in Japan, who would read my magazine travel stories and edit them, he said to me at least once, you always seem to end up on some mountain or some cliff or some coastal scenal spot with watching the sunset in your stories. And basically, he was right. That's what I do. I look for the light, whether I'm driving my car, whether I'm walking the streets of Tokyo, whether I'm out in my garden, whether I'm, writing a story for the magazine. It doesn't matter. Looking for the light. It could be at night, but that's a big theme for me. Other times this is in travel writing or article writing, interview writing, etc. I've ended the article with the person I'm interviewing giving me an inner glimpse of him or herself. Here's one I invented just for this workshop. I love the ocean and what I do, said Tanaka, as his wide smile reflecting his fishing life washed over me like a salty wave. So if I was interviewing a fisherman and I was attuned to his being, and I could, maybe we're standing by the seaside and I can smell the sea salt. Maybe I'm interviewing him in a room and I still smell his sea salt and feel his smile wash over me like a salty sea wave. The point is that, let's do the next conclusion first. So writing haiku, of course, there is the aha moment, many which are found in nature or inspired by nature. With travel writing, the need for a sense of peace, being open, attuned to the surroundings, having a sensual experience. You're all writers, so I'm sure you know these things, but the point is that for me, doing these kind of attunement practices, whatever your practice is, doing these kind of attunement practices helps me to tune into these moments. With fiction characters, now I do not write fiction. I see Michael Bronco here. I read his fiction. I know he writes fiction. With fiction characters or real people, which I do interview and write about, understanding and feeling the nature elements that dominate their character and personality can add so much to their descriptions. So what do I mean by this? Some people are, let's say there's 4 elements. Some people may say there's more. And maybe there's the qualities. There's 99 or 108 qualities that are sacred and special. But let's just, for the point of simplicity, say that there's 4 qualities: earth, water, fire, and air. Is your character, is the person you're interviewing, gee, this guy's really a fire person. He's really an earthy person. He's really watery. He's really got the flow to him. He's really ethereal and airy. I know people, all of these types. I mentioned a couple of times that maybe you could guess the ones that are strongest. I mean, it's interesting because it's connected, I've been told, it seems it's connected to your zodiac sign, and these things make up your personality. I'll just tell you from the suspense. For me, it's earth and water, earth and fire, sorry. The water and air have always been more difficult for me, so I have to take a little more concentration to attune myself. But maybe I'm attracted more to the watery people and the airy people for that reason. So that's that. So the key to all of this is being aware of these qualities and practicing them yourself, finding them yourself. I hope that a few of these comments that maybe not wake up, but remind you some little inner spot. That's why I do this. That's why I like that. Maybe there's something in it that will interest you. So that's basically what I have prepared. I have a poem I could read or something, but if we have any questions about the practice, I did make a PDF of the breathing, so to upload. Shall I try to do that, or shall I have some questions? We've got just 3:42. There's plenty of time. And actually, I'm the host of this room, and there's no one else coming in this room. So I'm happy to go back and repeat some of this stuff. I'm not sure I want to screen share just because I didn't do a very good job of it after I practiced a whole lot. So sorry about that. Any questions? And I just realized that I'm not recording. Oh, I am recording. Good. Okay. Any questions? You want to raise your? I'm not real good at doing the chat, although I can see it. So if there's not that many people here, if you want to raise your hand or just unmute yourself and ask a question. John Dougal, yes.
I'm interested in the spirit of place.
Spirit of place.
And the different effect that places have on our creativity. Have you any particular experience with that?
Yeah, I do. I don't necessarily, for example, where I live, there's not a whole lot of rushing water. There's one or two waterfalls, but in Chiba, the flowing rivers and the waterfalls are not, they're small, they're not plentiful, they're nice and they're quiet. But for example, the photo of water of the rushing stream with the green and the rock, that's up in Aomori at the Oirase River. And I needed some shots of the spring green and flowing water. And I said, where do I go? And I had been to, the funny thing about Sense of Places, that I had been to Aomori, the Oirase River, like 40 years ago when I went there to teach a meditation class for some businessmen. And the next day they took me on a drive, a pleasure drive, and they took me all around and we saw the Oirase River. And I said, wow, this is a beautiful place for nature meditations. And I never went back until like 2010 or something when I had an assignment and they needed some pictures from not only Chiba, where most of my pictures were taken, but they needed some pictures from around. So I said, I'll go to Oirase. You can never get a bad picture in Aomori. And so that's where I went. So the point is that as a sense of place, it stuck with me for more than 30 years as being something special. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, of course, Kyoto, there's places, people have seen in my writings, there's places in Kyoto I go, and some of the places I know, and so I go back there repeatedly, because there's something about the places that I like. Hans Brickman was talking about that yesterday, the importance of place and these places that I go back to forever. And
I was wondering in particular if you had any techniques for absorbing the spirit of place, tuning into the spirit of place.
That's a good question. I think that most of it is that I'm already in a good mood and sort of tuned in before I go. And that most of the time, let's say 90% of the time when I go to these places, it's because I'm in Kyoto or I'm in Aomori or I'm in Kyoto somewhere, because I'm there to take pictures. And so I work by intuition. I woke up in the morning and I look at a map and I just say, well, that looks good. Let's go there. But when I get there, I don't always have time to meditate because the time is right. The time is right and everything is perfect. And I'm not going to say, okay, let's sit for 5 minutes and meditate and see what this temple has to say to me. It's like I walk into the temple ground and I just feel it. And I see a tree and it just speaks to me, and I'll start running sometimes, to get there closer, or I'll be running with my tripod or my camera and pulling my equipment out as I'm moving towards it. If I write a haiku, it's probably after I've taken the picture, or it's probably after I've got home, maybe looked at the picture, and maybe I'm writing a journal. I don't do a lot of journaling while I'm traveling because I'm busy with my photos and backing up my photos at night, etc. Is that good? I don't know if anybody else has a question. Does that sort of answer? Somebody have a question?
Well, I could.
Yeah, John, you want to say something else, please?
Sorry, somebody else wants to go. Yeah, in that regard, have you had any experience with power spots, which have recently been a boom in Japan? Is that something that resonates with you?
Yes, it does. Although I don't necessarily, I think it all depends on the person. For example, there's one spot that I heard was a power spot, Tenkawa Jinja. It's in Nara.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to go the next day or two, and someone said, oh, Tenkawa. It's the navel of Japan. And it was Tenkawa Jinja, and there was a few famous musicians who had gone there and recorded music and stuff, and it was supposed to be really a power spot. So I went, not really knowing what to expect. But when I got there, I didn't feel so much at the place itself. I walked across the street a little bit further away, and there was a huge ginkgo tree. And by chance, there was a friend I knew who was standing under the tree with his group. practicing Tai Chi. And there we stood, and there was the power spot. And then late at night, inside the shrine, there was a ceremony that my friend was hosting, and he invited Mike to come. This is all written in my book, but we went into the ceremony, and that was a special night. So yes, Tenkawa Jinja is a power spot, but it took me a while to realize it. So again, I've had other people like, yeah, this is a real power spot, but I went there, I didn't feel it right away. I've been to other places that I think are just wonderful. My wife, who's not real spiritual or into this, I mean, it's like, come on, hurry up, let's go, kind of thing, you know. So that's it. That's the balance, right? She's the water and the air person who kind of wants to keep moving, and I'm the earth fire person who wants to sort of, you know, stand there. I go to the temples or these places, and you know, what you saw was one shots of this and that, but I probably took 20 shots or more, and was probably at that same spot for 30 minutes. So being at that spot photographing or just hanging out and waiting, that's my meditation. That's my sensual attuning to the place.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? I see one in the chat, but I lost it. Maybe that person would like to raise their hand. I think it was just a comment about mosquitoes. So yes, the mosquitoes. Lots of. Anyone else like to hear anything? But a lot of my poems, in some of the beginning, the openings and the endings for my, I would say not the endings, but the openings of the ideas for my essays. I write a lot of nonfiction, personal. After listening to Michael's previous lecture, I'm not sure if they're narrative or they're lyrical or whether they're kind of like somewhere in between is the way I feel. But here's one that I wrote just a couple of days ago. Waiting for a mountain. So this was sitting on, I have a cherry tree right outside my house, and this is where I usually try to go. It's about a 10 meters from my door. Get my cup of tea, I go down and I sit on the bench, have a little tea. I admit that I like my caffeine to get my mind going. And I have a little tea and I was thinking, well, okay, what's, just kind of waiting before I start doing my purification breaths. I just loosening up a little bit. And this came to me. Sitting on a hill, waiting for a mountain to lead me up, to pull me up, to walk up, to talk up, to listen up to the voice of our voice. So this was just a very short poem, but just written into this little book right as I'm sitting there. It's never been read before to anybody. Just today, right before the meeting, I just thought, I'll print this out. It's not, it happens to rhyme. It's really kind of silly. I don't know if I would ever publish it, but it explains my mood for that morning. So it's a way of journaling your meditative experience. Here's one more quick short one. They're all short. 3 and 5. It's just sort of the temporary title. But 3 birds, then 5 birds in my tree waiting for me to come down to the sanctuary. All sacred numbers, Holy Trinity, 5 for man, time to go, learn what they know. Can I still grow? So we say these are really, really just a very, very simple. They're not haiku. They're, I don't know what you call them. I mean, you could probably work them up into a haiku or to 3 lines, or you could work them into longer poems, which I may do later. I may do nothing with them later. They happen to be from September 22nd, or one is from October 7th, so they're pretty new stuff. Would anybody like to say something? Let me see if I can upload my file. Maybe I'll do it at the very end. Would somebody like to say something while I try to fool with this? Is anybody interested? If nobody's interested, then I'm not even going to bother to upload it. Oh, I did see a few. Let's say only the 5 elements, Mahapat, I can't pronounce it, are associated with one of these 5 senses. In the 5th ether, Akash, with the sense of sound. Haiku sung in Japanese, especially with its lack of prominent consonant. In Indian ragas, with their own associations of time and day, season, etc. Also with the cycles of 17 beats and others. One of the initiatives well received throughout in India and elsewhere. Also, India, Japan instrumental links. So thank you to Tim. Thank you, Tim. Glad you made it.
Hey, great to be here. Thank you so much. Having a wonderful time.
I don't think I gave what you said justice. I'm just trying to read it off the screen. But if you like to,
well, I was first interested in your singing a silent song, and I was hoping that you also sing a vocalized song.
Well, I do have one. This is silent. I have one that was silent song somewhere.
That would be like looking at a blank photograph, possibly.
I do have a poem. I don't have it ready to pass out right now. That's called. It's called "Drowning in Sound." Actually, is what it's called. It's kind of how about going into silence and just being fed up with everything that feels like it's too much noise. I know that you're into music. I've shared this poem with people I know who are actually jazz musicians and friends, and I say, I know you're into music, but I think you will appreciate this poem. I don't think I can share it right this minute, but I'd be happy to email it to you or anybody else.
Well, on the point that you just made there, when the COVID thing came on, I'm living actually in Western Guma. I have nature all around me here too, and I had been going in and out of the city quite a bit before that. So suddenly now the silence became leaden instead of golden, right? So I was saved by the birds. Really, there's the gabicho. The gabicho, I think it's called the Chinese lark or something. Very beautiful and very varied singing. If you have a chance to hear that bird. So sometimes we need to have some sound also.
Yeah, you really do. You really do need to. I'm just looking to see if I can find it. Yes, I do have it.
I'm in a lot of international conferences with both Indian and Japanese people involved. And it's often said that it's very difficult to get the Indians to be quiet and to get the Japanese to make a sound. So,
well, it is.
It's kind of like, nature.
I did find the poem. I mean, I could read it. I'm not exactly sure that it's the final version. It's not very long. Would you like to hear it? Raise your hand. If not, it's 2:55. Are someone planning to go to the 3 o'clock session? If not, we hang around a little bit later. You're free to leave. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much for coming and attending. I apologize for that the screen share was just a little bit rougher than I intended it to be. But yes, Hans, you have a question?
Oh, yes. No question, just a comment.
Okay.
I really liked your inspiring talk.
Thank you.
And one of the things I liked particularly is the haiku about the Akino Kaze. Akino Kaze haiku, which you quoted earlier.
Yes.
Why? Because I belong to autumn like the falling leaf. That's a quote from one of my own poems.
Yes, I'm sure.
I belong to autumn like the falling leaf. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
And lyanna has her hand raised. Are you there still?
Yes, I'm
I
here.
was gonna. Oh, she's a different Leah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Bye. No.
Lyanna and Leanne, they sound very similar. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Lyanna first.
Okay. Yeah. So it was. I really liked your speech, and it really made me kind of like inspired to write more like about nature. And like also like I'm from Norway, which has like a lot of really, really beautiful nature, but I moved to Japan in 2018, and I've been here since. And like especially since COVID started, I've really like started like I never really felt homesick at all until COVID, but I feel like now I'm like I really like miss like the nature that I kind of always took for granted in a way, like living and growing up in Norway. And I really like wanna like I try to use like Norway's inspiration a lot of times, like for my writing. I like writing poetry though I'm not very good at it yet. But I was just wondering if you have like any kind of tips for like how I can like kind of try to attune myself to a nature that I'm not really a part of like right now. Like it's I can't really just go home.
Well, you can do it in your mind's eye. I don't, just to keep the answer very short, because I know, Leanne, I think you said you're going to go, but you want to go somewhere else at 3. But I want to say that you can learn, you can just do it all in your mind's eye. You just close your eyes and you just imagine your home, the river fords in Norway. I've had many photographer friends in Norway, and they said, "Oh, you'd love to come. You'd have a feast if you went to Norway." Leanne, would you like to speak? I don't know if you need to leave, Leanne. Leanne Sullivan.
Sullivan, yeah. I've been to Tenkawa Jingu.
Yes,
and just listening, yeah, in the 1990s. And I had the same experience waiting about 2 days for something, and then suddenly everything happened. I had a beautiful trip there.
Well, I was there in I think it was the late 90s as well. And the first thing I did when I arrived there, there's this synthesizer music that's like being played on the shrine grounds. And
they have some group that makes
but
I want to go again.
Artist, Miyashita-san is his name. I have nothing against the artist, but Miyashita-san is a famous, and he had done some music, especially for Tenkawa. And the priest of the temple, who was actually a nice guy, I met him and kind of interviewed him, but to walk into the shrine, you're outside in the precincts of the shrine, and there's this synthesizer music playing through the speakers. That kind of turned me off right away, but
that I should write about my experience if I can remember it, because it was quite special, and everyone thought I was nuts for going there.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
You just have to meet the right kind of people. But I live near Tokugawa Museum.
Yeah.
And people who were missionaries in Nagoya, who I know who lived here about 40, 50 years, they say it's a power spot. Tenkawa Museum, where the Genji Monogatari scrolls are held and all that. But I think it probably is a power spot. But I have to learn to be receptive to it. These people remind me of it, they take advantage of it. Being an artistic person, you should take advantage of it, living in that neighborhood. So, but your talk reminded me of a lot of things like that I don't think about on the everyday basis.
Well, you should definitely write down those old memories. That's number one. Whether
Thank
it's poem or prose. Okay, thank you a lot for coming.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm going to go to the cookbook thing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I would say that, yes, it's very true that, I was a Japanese person, a kind of Japanese hippie, I guess you could call him, older than me, who said, you're going to Tenkara Jinja. It's the navel of Japan. And I just thought that was so strange. But as soon as we got on the highway to go near there, it's all replanted cedar forest, and you don't see any, it doesn't feel sort of ancient like the navel of Japan. It didn't to me, but like I say, for those of you who don't know my book called Whisper of the Land, I didn't even get around to posting anything in the chat. I'm hoping the people who want to know more will email me. I have my websites are edophoto.com and whisperoftheland.com, or you can probably just Google Edward Levinson, photographer, and I'm pretty sure I will pop up, and you'll see my publications, which I neglected to promote today, but I see we have some people there. Someone who has published me, Mr. Naoki Haraoka. I don't see his face, but I see him there. He runs a magazine publishing articles about Japan. He's published some of my articles and some by other friends that I know. So I really do. I thank you all. Mr. Steve Gardner, you're not going to show us your face? Guess not. Okay. Maybe he left, or maybe he said.
I'm around here. I'm just a novice at this damn thing.
So that's what you told me. You said if you can.
You inspire me, Ed. Thank you so very much, and everyone else. I can appreciate both Hans and Tim's comments on both the wind and the silence. So I'll be expecting a song from you next time if I get this damn thing working right.
Okay, I never did get to read my poem, Drowning in Sound. Does anybody still want to hear it? Happy to share it for a minute. This is Steve Gardner, who's also a musician, photographer, and writer. Tim Hoffman is also an Indian musician. We have Hans Brickman here, who's a famous writer on Japanese in Japan, and famous writer on Japan. And Alina from Norway, who we're so happy that you made it. And I'm not sure who Shin is or who Clara is, but welcome and thank you for staying to the very end. Would you like to hear the poem or not? I'll give you one more chance to raise your hand. Okay. I have to sort of turn off Zoom to look at my journal. I'm drowning. Can you still hear me? I'm drowning in the sound of your ceaseless voices when we need only peaceful silence. I am drowning in the sound. I am drowning in the sound of talking that is shallow when we need depth. I am drowning in the sound of political polemics when we are in a pandemic. I am drowning in the sound. I am drowning in the sound of too much ecology and haiku when what we need is sharing breath. I am swimming in sound. I am swimming in the sound of the forest world when I could be at my desk. I am sailing in sound. I am sailing on the seasonal wind, on the sound of the seasonal winds when I could be online. I am floating in sound. I am floating in the sound of the birds in the sky, creatures of the land when I could be shopping. I am drowning in the sound. I am drowning in the sound of my own mind when I could be floating in sounds of silence. I hope you could hear that. Okay. Thank you, Hans. Thank you. So that's the poem. I appreciate, I'm sure if that's the final editor, maybe Steve or Steve Gardner, we put that one to music. That would be kind of good. We make it into a blues song.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Either that or get Tim. Tim could take that into the deep forest out there.
Well, I'm happy to send you the poem, and we can play around with it. Reading with music might be interesting.
Well, finally, that might be a nice tip. Elena, I haven't met you, but I feel your feeling of being homesick and wanting to belong in a place where maybe you don't feel you belong. So if you have a nice photograph and a nice song from home, that often helps. That's what helps me a little bit anyway. It was nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much, Ed for inviting me and
thanks for
the inspiration today.
Thanks for coming. Just Alina, so Steve you're from Mississippi, right? So
right.
He's been marooned in Japan here. I mean, he lives in Japan, but he's been marooned here for as long as you are. So I'm sure he misses his hometown. He posts some really cool stories on Facebook. Check him out.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay,
You all take good care of yourself. Ed, we'll talk soon then.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Bye, y'all.